Good morning. I became a Christian on July 17th, 1983. Now on my piece of paper here, that's in speech marks, because that's not true. I'm always really jealous when I hear people say things like that. I call them thunderbolt stories, and I used to feel really inadequate when I heard them because I don't have a thunderbolt story. I can't tell you the exact date I became a Christian. I can't tell you stories about how I suddenly started telling the world about Jesus after a certain date and how my life changed overnight. But I can tell you a story of how I became a Christian, though, and how it has changed my life from top to bottom. I first became aware of God when I was about 11, and the legendary, famous American preacher Billy Graham came to Birmingham as part of his national evangelizing Mission England tour. I went with my mum and some friends of mine, and I don't remember much about it, apart from the fact that I made some kind of commitment at the end. I know that throughout my teenage years, I prayed regularly. I went to church sometimes, not every week. I would say, I don't go to church religiously. People would think it was funny, but it wasn't really meant to be a joke. And I occasionally donated part of my pocket money to the church. I wasn't embarrassed about believing in God, but I didn't have any kind of relationship with him. Now, years passed, and I moved further and further away from God, even after voluntarily being confirmed in my local C of E church when I was 18. I still didn't have a relationship with God, and I definitely hadn't been filled with the Holy Spirit. Now, throughout my 20s, I still thought I was a Christian, but I didn't think twice about doing things that the Bible specifically tells us not to do. Then a girl called Helen, a friend of mine from university, introduced me to this girl called Jubilee. Now, Helen wasn't a Christian, but she thought I was because I believed in God. And because I said prayers sometimes and I didn't tell lies. I had to give God more of a chance because I really liked this girl and she wouldn't entertain going out with someone who wasn't a Christian. So she lived in Chelmsford, I lived in Liverpool. I went to her church in Chelmsford and I soon realized what it actually meant to be a Christian and why I most definitely hadn't been one. Judy would say Jesus and God and the Lord in conversations, and I would wince. I'd go like that. I don't know why I did it, but I did. The thing was, I believed in God, but I had never really thought about having an actual relationship with him. I hadn't heard of being filled with the Holy Spirit, but it did sound amazing. I started to go to church. I joined a home group straight away, and I loved it. I did an Alpha course, and I loved that too. God put the right people in my life who knew where I was coming from and who I could talk to. Do I need to change mine? The hardest thing for me was that my life was filled with things that I knew they probably shouldn't be. I liked watching films like Goodfellas, Pulp Fiction, Boogie Nights, films full of violence and swearing that were definitely not good for me. I liked listening to hip-hop, music that's filled with swearing and definitely isn't good for me. I knew I had to get rid of those things from my life, but the fact was I really didn't want to. But God was amazing. He changed me in my own time, so that without even knowing it, I'd wake up and I didn't want to listen to hip-hop, and I didn't want to watch films like that anymore, and because they were damaging for me, and I knew it in my soul, in my spirit. From then on, God continued to be amazing. He changed me in ways I can't really begin to talk about and made my life 1,000 times better. What I can't say is that he made it all perfect. Being a Christian doesn't mean your life is suddenly going to be perfect or that you suddenly have to be perfect. If you're putting off giving your life to God because you don't think you're good enough, stop putting it off. He loves you as you are, and it's him that's perfect, not you, not me. If you're putting off giving your life to God because you don't want to follow rules, stop putting it off. any rules he asks you to follow will only make your life better, not worse. I don't know all the reasons you might have for putting off giving your life to God, but whatever they are, stop putting it off. Do it today.